Hey, hello everyone and welcome in a new video. Don't forget to subscribe to the Xavkey channel to support me and like and comment this video. In this video, I'd like to introduce the connection to the API server, how it works, what is this first part of the API server, and this is very useful to understand how it works, but how you can config your kube config file, like we saw in the previous video. This is the first step to understand it, and in the next video we'll see how to use the kubectl, our first kubectl command, and do the same thing with the simple curl command. So let's go. Now to begin, what is kubectl? Kubectl have several ways of pronouncing way. For example, we can pronounce kubectl or kubectl or kubeclient, but this is the same things like a Python library or Golang that can do. And in the next video, we will see that we can use a kubectl, but do the same thing with the simple curl command. So it's a little bit more complex, but we can do it in our terminal with a simple curl. And Kube API server, this is a RESTful API, not SOAP or GraphQL API. This is a RESTful API, RESTful for Representational State Transfer. This is a client-server interface, a classic client-server interface. So of course, client-server connection is over HTTP, and with HTTP, you have multiple verbs. For example, get, when you want to list, for example, pods about a namespace or your cluster, you can do a get with your HTTP request, but of course we will use kubectl get, not with the curl, but we discover it with curl command. This is very interesting to do it. The post, to create something, for example, if you want to create a deployment, you can use the post verb about HTTP. The put, of course, to update something that already exists. And to delete, we use delete to remove a resource into our cluster. And we have two parts about this entry point. The front end about this entry point is about to the security, of course, and we have authentication and authorization. They are based on RBAC. So for role-based access control, this is really well-known security model. And authentication are about you, user. Are you allowed to connect to the cluster? And after that, you are allowed to connect to the cluster, but are you authorized to make an action that you want to do? So this is the authentication. So this is two parts. The first part is authentication and the second part is authorization. So I said authentication, not authorization for the second part. This is really important. And you can, for the authentication, use multiple mode. For example, you can use a standard mode based on TLS certificate with mutual TLS, MTLS, but you can use OpenID, for example, with Keycloak or OAuth, or you can use a cloud provider authentication, AWS, can provide it, for example, with its own command line. And now just a little focus on authentication. Authentication can be done outside of the cluster by a user, for example, you or me, yes, by an application. if you use a Python script with a Kubernetes library, you need to use the HTTP request, but you need to have an authentication step. This is really, really important. And certificate TLS as an authentication part, and a very usual mode to be authenticated with the Kubernetes cluster. And as the same mode, many components into the Kubernetes cluster, for example, the kubelet or kubeproxy, use this method to be authenticated through the API server. But when you are into the Kubernetes cluster, you can use a second mode to be authenticated inside the pod in your cluster. You can use a service account. You can create a dedicated service account and push it into a pod and use a specific token, a bearer token. And now the authorization mode, of course, use the Airbag model, and this is just a screenshot about a role into our cluster. And in this role, we have three important elements. So, of course, the role name. For example, here this is pod reader, but we have three elements take into the rules. We have API groups, for example. So we discover in the previous video API groups, and the resources. Of course, we have pods, we have deployment, replica set, etc. So in this role, we can allow a specific role to access a specific resource, for example pod, and verbs. So we can just allow, for example, a user a role to list pods. So we can add get and list and watch, for example, but we can add other verbs like edit or like patch, for example. So in our case, this is just in the screenshot a pod. For on pod, we can just get, watch, list for a role. So when you have created a role, after that you can add some users to use this role, and users can do the same thing that allows through this role. Now on the kubeAPI server, we have some groups, and groups are separated in two kinds of groups. The first is named core, or alias with legacy, but this is not the correct terms. But core or legacy is for the main, main component, and the path into our API server is /API/v1. We'll see it in the next video, and this is really interesting to know it. And aside of it, we have another kind of group. This is named groups, and this is of course not for main component. For example, when you add into the cluster an operator, we'll see it later, so you need to handle your own resources, and in this case you need to have your own group, so you create a name group dedicated to it. And of course it's a specific path in the API server /APIs with a S, and the group name and the version. And then after the group names, we have this is like a matrix. We have the level of this API groups, and for each API groups we have the V1 alpha 1, 2, 3, etc. V1 Alpha is for experimental API, or sub API if you want, if you prefer. And experimental, that means that the developers can change this API without notice everyone. And V1 Beta, it's a more stable version and can be activated by default in the latest version of Kubernetes. And stable version is, for example, V for V1 or V2, and the stable version, that means we can ensure a backward compatibility. For example, when you do upgrade or stuff like that, you can be sure that you can revert this one. So just a few words about the API group. You can create your own API group. Like I said, when you create your own operator, or if you push another operator in the API, in the Kubernetes cluster, you can use a specific group dedicated for your operator, and that allows you to have your own resources. For example, this is a screenshot where we create a custom resource definition. Custom resource definition, this is like we create our own resource. For example, here we can see that we create a kind of a kind name my object. So this is a new resource, like for example, we have pod or deployment or service, but with this manifest, when we push it through the API server, we create another kind of object, like pod or deployment, named my object. This is very interesting to do it. We'll see it later. Of course, we need to learn many things before to go through this element. And when we create this kind of object, we need to define which group or which sub API, if you want. For example, here, this is xavkey.fr. This is the group of our API and the version of our API. Here, this is V1, for example, but you can use alpha, etc. And if this resource is namespaced, or not, what does it mean? For example, a resource namespaced, that means we can have same resource, we can have resources with the same name into our cluster, but in different namespace. If we don't have a namespaced resource, that means we can't have the same resource with the same name into our Kubernetes cluster. And in the last part here, we can see that we define many names about the same resource because, for example, when you use kubectl get pods, we have a plural, but we can use a singular, for example, kubectl get pod, and the output is the same. And we can use like an alias. This is short names, and the short names, for example, for pod is PO. So, for example, if you run kubectl get PO, this is the same things like kubectl get pod, for example. And now the kubeconfig, we'll see it and we'll go in more details in the next video, because in the next video we'll discover the kubectl command, the argument or option for beginners, and in the second part of the next video we will use a curl command to push some requests to our API server. So an overview about the kubeconfig. Kubeconfig usually is stored into your home and specifically in the .cube directory, and like we saw in the previous video, in the config file, this is what we name kubeconfig. And of course we can define the kubeconfig location in the environment variable in the kubeconfig with uppercase environment variable. And after that, what we have into our kubeconfig, so for example, if we take just our Vagrant cluster like we developed in the previous video, I can go in our server, and into the server we can just check where is our kubeconfig. So to do that, we can just an echo on the kubeconfig environment variable. We can see our kubeconfig is here, and if I just cat on this file, we can see the same things like we have in the screenshot here. And in the screenshot we have three parts. So around these three parts we have the kind of our manifest. We'll see it in many manifests. For example, when we want to create a pod with a manifest, we have mandatory API version v1, v1 alpha, beta, or etc. The kind of the manifest. Of course, when we want to create a pod, we need to define the kind to pod. Here is just config for kubeconfig. And after that, we have three parts for our kubeconfig configuration. We have clusters with S at the end. That means this is a list. Here we have just one cluster with the dash here. We can see this is the first cluster, and into this cluster we have the name of the cluster. We can name it for example Joe, and if we set it to Joe, we need of course change the context here to Joe. This is really important. But we can change a cluster and attribute a random name, but we need to be coherent. And in the cluster, we need to define the certificate authority data. Of course, like we said, we use mutual TLS, MTLS. So to do it, we need to, in this case, this is just a part to run HTTPS. So the server here is it can be accessed by the HTTPS address. So HTTPS, the port of our Kubernetes, the Kube API. So here, and by default, usually is 6443, and the DNS about our server. Of course, usually. Behind this DNS, we have a load balancer to be sure that we have multiple master and load balance through this multiple master. And to be sure to use the HTTPS with no self-signed certificate, the kubeconfig the kubeconfig has into it the certificate authority data, and this is where we have the TLS certificate to be sure to handle the HTTPS. And after that, what we have the context. So the context is just two really important things. So of course we have the name about our context. So this is like you want. This is just a name. And after that we have the cluster. So the cluster is just a reference about what we have into our cluster list. So we want to use the first, so we define here the same name like we have it. And aside of it we have user. So user is just a reference about which user we use into the users list. So So of course we need to have the good user to be connected into the final Kubernetes cluster through the API server. So if you use another user not defined into the Kubernetes cluster, that doesn't work, of course. And we have the namespace, but it's not really important, but cluster and user really important, and the name of the context. So if you have many Kubernetes cluster, you have multiple cluster, multiple users, of course, and multiple context. So when you want to change which API server you use through your kubectl command, you need to change context used. So we'll see it later, of course. By default, the current context here is, for example, this one, but we have only one context, so it's easy. And in users, we can have multiple users. Here we have just one user named xavkeyadmin. Of course, this is the same user that we have here. And the user, in the user part here, we have how this user can be allowed to connect through the API server for the authentication. So, for example, here this is based on client certificate. So we have the client certificate and the client key data, but in other case, for example, if you use EKS for AWS cloud provider, you have, for example, here some bash or shell script lines to use the AWS command who provides the authentication directly. And each certificate, for example, certificate authority data, certificate client certificate data, client key data, are generally encoded in base 64. That's it for today. In the next video, we will discover how to use a kubectl and how we can do the same things with the curl commands. It's very interesting to know that. Just we need to do it once, but it's really interesting to do that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support me, like and comment this video. See you in the next one.